Alright guys, welcome back to the JellybeanSniper.net NFL podcast. And we are following up what is an amazing Super Bowl that we all just got to witness. I have watched every Super Bowl. I'm significantly younger than a lot of the guys you will probably listen to. I have watched every Super Bowl since Super Bowl 30, which was the last Cowboys and Steelers Super Bowl. In all those years of watching Super Bowls, and all the football games in between, this is the greatest game I've ever seen. This is the greatest Super Bowl I've ever seen. And from people who have seen a lot more of these great games, it seems like that's the general consensus. Now, I know a lot is going to be made of the final play call, and I guess it might be partially warranted. I mean, we all play Madden, so we all think we know how to, coach a football team. But I think a lot is lost on, everyone thinks it comes down to play calling scenarios and time management, and there is so much more that goes into coaching. Developing players, teaching your players what to anticipate, what to expect. And I think with that final play, everybody in the world would have run the ball with Marshawn Lynch. Everyone in the world expected that to come down. So what do you do when everyone in the world expects you to do something in a football game? You do the opposite. They all expected them to run, so they threw the ball. Russell Wilson made a nice pass. There's a picture up, I've seen it, where they highlight just as Russell Wilson is about to throw the ball. The receiver is open. Lockett is open. As far as NFL throws go, he is open. And inches separate whether or not that was a catch. It's not like he threw it in the double coverage where it was an impossible throw. Hindsight is 20/20, and everyone's going to say what they want to say about this. But at the end of the day, Malcolm Butler, an undrafted rookie, jumps that route, sees the play coming, makes an unbelievable catch, shoves Lockett out of the way, holds onto the ball, and has the wherewithal to jump across the goal line to make sure it's not considered a safety. Whether or not it would have been considered a safety, I don't know. I can't tell, but he knew that he had to at least get that far to give them a chance. So a lot can be made. You can say that Lockett didn't go hard enough at the ball, and maybe that's true. But what Malcolm Butler did was an unbelievable play, and the reason he got to make that play was because of coaching. Because Bill Belichick harped on him in practice. They ran that exact play. The practice squad, the scout team, same thing, ran that play. And he got beat on it in that instance. And Belichick harped on him, and when they went to the line of scrimmage for that play in the Super Bowl, Brandon Browner turned around and reminded him that play could be coming. Browner did a good job of taking Javon Curtis out of it, and Butler just saw exactly what he had seen in practice and reacted so insanely quickly. If he's a half step behind where he actually was, that's a touchdown pass. But he made an unbelievable interception. He held on to the ball, and it's just the game came down to an amazing, historic play. After Javon Curtis made one of the most ridiculous catches we've seen since Tyree, was that Antonio Freeman who made that catch for the Packers on Monday Night Football? Basically the same thing, juggling the ball, thought it was down. But credit to the Patriots, because they don't quit. Again, the coaching, they don't quit at the end of the game, or the end of the play, rather. And they ran after him, and Malcolm Butler thought he made that tip. And the guy got up to run, and he shoved him out of bounds and saved the touchdown there. So, and Dante Hightower managed to just trip Marshawn Lynch's feet and stop a touchdown run to play after that. The Patriots played hard, and that comes down to good coaching. Pete Carroll was aggressive. That's why at the end of the first half, 6 seconds left on the clock, everyone else in the world kicks a field goal. Pete Carroll threw a pass, and they got a touchdown, and they tied it at 14 going into halftime. Because He's aggressive. It's the same thing we harped on the Packers 2 weeks ago not doing, is not being aggressive. Pete Carroll was aggressive. That carries throughout the entire game. At no point did he go conservative. And I applaud him for that. I would have run the ball with Marshawn Lynch, but I'm saying that as somebody who has never even sniffed being at the NFL level. Never even played high school football or college football. Never even sniffed that. Well, I practiced a few times, but they don't make helmets big enough. But that's besides the point. I'm getting off topic. I am not going to sit here and doubt Pete Carroll or Bevel for their decisions and their play calling, because they saw something they liked. This was the game that we all were hoping for, and I think it exceeded expectations. And I'm not going to let one play ruin what I thought was an unbelievable game. There were a couple of bad calls by the referees, but they pretty much neutralized each other. There was one bad call. It should have been a roughing the punter penalty near the beginning of the play. I think that was the first drive that the Seahawks, they only got, what's the other kicker one? They only got a 5-yard penalty on that instead of the 15 and an automatic first down. But it was neutralized because later on, the Patriots got away with a pass interference call. So the refs did not decide this game. That one play call, everything comes down to one play. There were a series of unbelievable plays in this game. We just remember that because it was the last one. The Seahawks defense, everyone wants to say that how can they not hold on to a lead? Well, when you lose Cliff Averill, who is one of your best pass rushers, he went out with a concussion. So he's gone. Michael Bennett was an absolute monster in the middle. Some of the stunts he was running, and I've never really noticed these before, but just to watch him completely just stop and stand perfectly still, bait the offensive line, and then scoot right around them and force an interception. He played out of his mind. Chris Matthews, everyone's talking about him, the guy who worked at Foot Locker. He made some unbelievable catches, taking advantage of matchups, because he was 8 inches taller, or whatever it was, than Kyle Arrington. When they finally put Brandon Browner on him, he was neutralized. Malcolm Butler worked at a Popeyes before. So there is a lot to be said about some of the unsung heroes that came through, and that just shows what you need to do in today's NFL. You have to know how to scout. You can't just go and sign the big shot free agents. Sometimes it works. I think the Broncos did a really good job of assembling a team essentially of some star players like DeMarcus Ware. They got Peyton Manning from Indy, obviously. They've picked up some really good players, but they also scattered out a couple other ones like the linebacker Brandon Marshall. Got him off a practice squad. He turned out to be pretty good for them. You need contributions from players who just not everyone else, other teams would overlook. You had Tom Brady, a 6th-round pick. We all know this. Solidifying his place as the greatest quarterback of all time. More on that in a second. But on the other side, you had Russell Wilson, a 3rd-round pick, who everyone said was too short to play quarterback. And no drafted wide receivers. The biggest offensive threats were a cast-off from Buffalo in Marshawn Lynch, and the greatest tight end I've ever seen play football in Rob Gronkowski. Those were your 2 offensive weapons. Otherwise, this came down to a matter of defense and just coaching, and these are the 2 best coaches in the NFL right now. But Belichick is the greatest of all time. As good as Pete Carroll is, Belichick's better. And that was the decision, that was the deciding factor. Russell Wilson, in some ways, outplayed Tom Brady because he threw it deep. They had a deep ball going, which Tom Brady does not have. Tom Brady was efficient. Tom Brady threw 2 picks. Offset it with 4 touchdowns, but Russell Wilson, his only mistake was that final throw. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people are going to remember this game for that. What they should remember, the Giants and Patriots Super Bowls and the Rams, every Patriots Super Bowl has been entertaining. A lot of Super Bowls lately have been entertaining. This was the first one I can think of where it was entertaining from the beginning of the game all the way until the end. It kept going and going. The Patriots overcame a 10-point deficit. The Seahawks were in position, but even if they score that touchdown, The Patriots still have some time left on the clock, and they only got to get in field goal range, and this could have gone into overtime. This close to the first overtime game. This was an absolute outstanding game. All around. It just absolutely... I want to watch it again. Where can I watch this again? I want to watch it again. Seriously, NBC, let me know. I know the NFL Network rebroadcast it. Can I stream it somewhere? I streamed the Super Bowl from NBC.com. It was nice. I didn't have to see any of the depressing commercials. So, well, I had to see that Nissan one with Cats in the Cradle playing in the background. That was a little bit, that was a little rough, especially considering I'm a, first-time father right now. But I'm sorry to all you guys who were crying throughout the game during the commercials. I promise you, the stuff that you were supposed to be watching was really good. I didn't stick around for the halftime show. I went to go pick up a pizza. Apparently there was a thing with sharks. I'll have to go watch that too. I saw Katy Perry on the giant freaking tiger. Okay, whatever. But going back to what I said a little bit sooner, or a little bit earlier, and I'm sure you guys are partially freaking out. Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time. And I don't think this is a debate. I don't think this is a debate anymore. I know a lot of people will say Joe Montana, but I think you put those two at the top, and then you going back too far to like the Jim Thorpes. Was he back then they played every position. I can't remember if he was a quarterback or a running back now. It's going to bug me. I don't feel like looking it up. But the modern era quarterback is generally what we're looking at. And modern era, I'll go back to the 60s. I'll go back to the Bart Starrs and the Roger Staubachs. Johnny Unitas is another one who deserves to be higher up there than I think he is by some modern people. But Tom Brady has 4 rings. The same as Bradshaw, the same as Montana. But Tom Brady's been to 6 Super Bowls, which means he has more postseason success. A lot of people will talk about perfect. No. If you played 10 years in the NFL and you were 10-0 in the Super Bowl, then your perfection matters. But to have an extended career, going to 4 Super Bowls and being perfect in that, versus somebody who played just as long, went to 6 Super Bowls and won 4, that means he won 2 more conference championship games than you. Which means he probably won a couple more divisional championship games than you. And that has to be true because Tom Brady's been to 9 conference championship games. He's 6-3 in conference championship games. And he has the better stats. So even from that perspective, he is better. At one point, he had the most passing touchdowns in a season. He had that one, he has an unbeaten regular season. Montana doesn't have that. The only one to have that is Greasy. And you can argue he was not at all the deciding factor in that. Tom Brady has won Super Bowls not carrying the team on his back. This Super Bowl, he did not carry the team on his back, but they could not have done it without him. And they went to Super Bowls with him carrying them on his back. Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. And that's not to diminish anything that Joe Montana did, that Johnny Unitas did, that John Elway did. It's not to diminish anything that Peyton Manning has accomplished thus far. But Tom Brady's accomplished more than all of them. Tom Brady's stats, he will be third place to Favre and Peyton Manning by the time he retires. At least. I don't know if he plays long enough to overcome them because that wasn't his game in the beginning of his career. His career parallels Russell Wilson's career so far. At the beginning of his career, 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 10 picks. That was it. Modest numbers, which back then wasn't bad. But, nowadays that's going to get broken because Andrew Luck throws for 4,000 yards every year. He'll probably beat Peyton Manning's record by 10,000 yards. But it's more than just numbers. It's about the championships. It's about all the accomplishments. And yes, did he luck out by getting the best by being teamed up with the best coach of all time? Yeah. Absolutely he did. But that doesn't take away from what he did. Do you think Belichick would have 4 rings without Brady? No. He might have 1 or 2. I'm sure he would have found someone else. My argument always before was that Peyton Manning was better than Tom Brady because Peyton Manning had a lot less to work with and did more with it. Peyton Manning, when he had to have those neck surgeries and he missed that 1 year, the Colts went 1-15. When Tom Brady got his knee taken out by Bernard Pollard, the Patriots went 11-5. This was on the heels of their 16-0 season, so it was still a 5-game decrease compared to Matt Castle. But they still went 11-5. They didn't make the playoffs because, I think, wasn't that the year the Chargers made it at 8-8 because they won their division? This is why sometimes I think it needs to be looked at. This year it didn't really matter as much because the Cardinals, I don't care about the seeding necessarily. I care about who makes the playoffs. I don't see why the Philadelphia Eagles have to sit at home while the 7-8-1 Carolina Panthers get to go into the playoffs and then take on the Cardinals, who limped into the playoffs. I've never understood that. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. The Patriots are dominant. The only other quarterback to win the AFC East title during the time that Tom Brady has been the starting quarterback of the Patriots is Chad Pennington. Once for the Jets and once for the Dolphins. And both of those times the Patriots were tied for the division lead. So the Patriots have been dominant this whole time, and it starts with Bill Belichick and it starts with Tom Brady. Peyton Manning was really good. But Peyton Manning had 6-10 seasons. Tom Brady's worst season as a starter is 9-7. And after that is 10-6. His first season, 11-3. They were 0-2 before he came in. 11-3. Then he went 9-7. And then it's just a run of 11 and 12 win years after that. So I think Deflategate needs to get thrown out the window. I always thought that this whole time. They didn't have deflated footballs this time. 37-50 for 358 yards or whatever it was. 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Everyone's going to make a couple bad throws a game, especially when you throw 50 throws, you're going to make 2 bad ones. Russell Wilson made 1 bad throw. He only threw 21 times. So, Tom Brady, deflated footballs. You want to make that argument. You want to talk about Spygate. Spygate, it was a new rule. A lot of people don't remember that. In 2006, Spygate would have been legal. But they did it in 2007 after they changed the rule. It's sort of like, what was it? I don't know if this was a joke or not, but I remember seeing this on Top Gear. Here, we're going to a car show real quick. Just bear with me. In France, they changed the rule so that at any time in your car, in the trunk of your car, somewhere in your car, you had to have one of the high visibility, the giant neon yellow construction worker jackets. You like the vest. In case your car broke down or whatever. You had to have one of those in your car at all times. So if you get pulled over 2 days after that law passes and you didn't hear about it and you don't have the high visibility jacket, are you a criminal? No. You just aren't sure how seriously that rule is going to be taken. And the only reason the Patriots got caught is because Eric Mangini got thrown out for doing that. And he ratted out on his former boss. The Patriots weren't the only team doing Spygate. Historically, they hadn't been. That season, they probably weren't. Deflategate, the referees have come out now and said they don't have anywhere written down the measurements of the balls. Which means, and Colin Cowherd's been saying this from the beginning, and it sounded logical the whole time, nobody actually, and I think Bill Simmons did too, we'll disregard him just because he's a Patriots fan. Sorry. Usually I will totally acknowledge anything Bill says, but Patriots fan, you gotta sit on the fence here. The referees probably just walked up to the balls and sort of gave them, the squeeze like you would if you're picking out fruit at a supermarket. Just, yeah, this feels good. Let it pass. If you're going in and you want that ball a little bit less deflated than legal, and you don't think the referees are going to check it, then instead of, what's the minimum? 11.5. Maybe you do 11.2. You just let a little bit of extra air out. Worst case scenario, they're going to check it with the thing and say, no, you're below, you got to inflate it back up, and they'll pump the extra little bit of air in there, and everyone moves along. But if they don't check it, then you got that little bit of an edge. Don't tell me the Patriots are the only team doing that. And now, this falls on the referees. As far as I'm concerned, this one falls on the referees, now that they've come out and said that, and basically confirmed it. And also now they've come out and said that it was basically one ball that was really underinflated, and everything else was sort of like within reason for where the weather could have been a factor in changing how much it was inflated. So, Bill Belichick, the science guy, maybe he's not so full of crap after all. So, I think all of that stuff needs to get thrown out the window, and I think we should just all sit back and enjoy and realize the game that we just watched. Because this might be the best football game we ever get. How often do we get the long-running dynasty, a long-tenured dynasty, matching up against a team that sort of was starting to become their own dynasty in the NFL? The perfect parallel to this was last year, 2 years ago when it started, the Spurs versus the Heat in the NBA. The difference there is LeBron James left Miami to go back to Cleveland, so we're not going to get any rematches of that. But the Patriots are very similar to the Spurs, except the Spurs have been going for an extra 2 years on what the Patriots have done. And Tim Duncan was a little more commonly accepted that he might be a star. I don't think anyone ever thought he would be a top 5 all-time player, but I think generally people knew you could build a franchise around him. So it's a very similar situation. And again, that finals where the Spurs blew it at the end, that's almost what happened here with the Patriots, but luckily they managed to hold on. So I'm going to take a little bit of credit here. Now, everyone always wants to know the score when you're picking the Super Bowl. A lot of people like scores for most games, but generally the Super Bowl, it seems like you're not allowed to pick the game without a score. And I said it would be 27-24 as the final score the Patriots would win. I was off by 1 point. 1 point. I'm chalking that up as a victory for myself, and I don't even care. The only thing insulting to me right now is, you know who got that 100% accurate? The Madden simulation. They said it'd be Patriots 28, Seahawks 24, and Danny Amendola would catch the game-winning touchdown. Or Julian Edelman. They called whichever one. I get them backwards all the time. They're very similar players, except Julian Edelman has a better arm. So I always get those two kind of mixed up. This was just an amazing all-around game. Capped off there were quite a few really great games in this postseason. And it really capped off, on the field, this was one of the better football seasons we've had in a long time. Off the field, absolutely, there were way too many distractions, but I've already harped on those enough. But on the field, think about in the AFC, what did we have, 11 of the teams finished above 500? It was an outstanding year. We had all sorts of storylines on the field. We had the Browns in first place at one point. We crowned the Bengals the best team in the NFL after 3 weeks. We buried the Patriots after 3 weeks. We thought the Broncos couldn't be stopped. We thought the Seahawks couldn't be stopped after 1 week, and then we buried them after 5. And then we sort of thought they were coming back, but we couldn't figure out why they traded Deshaun Jackson? No. I don't even remember who the hell they traded now. Deshaun Jackson's on the Redskins. Macklin's still on the Eagles. I don't remember his name. Regardless, it was very interesting. There were a lot of overreactions throughout this entire season. Myself included, I overreacted on a couple. We thought we were witnessing the Eagles really ascending into an upper echelon team. They didn't make the playoffs. We all thought that the Chiefs looked like one of the best teams in the NFL despite an early loss to Tennessee. They didn't make the playoffs. We all laughed at the notion of a sub-500 team making the playoffs out of the NFC South. They won their first round game. We all crowned the Cardinals Bruce Arians as the greatest coach in the NFL right now. He's up there. Maybe not the greatest coach. they did a hell of a job this year. And we really thought that the Cardinals were going to be the first team to play at home in a Super Bowl. And with Carson Palmer at quarterback, that might have happened. I do think with Carson Palmer at quarterback, they would have stood a chance. We witnessed J.J. Watt get 13 out of 50 MVP votes for a defensive player, which was insane. I would have given him my MVP, but I understand why you're going to go with Aaron Rodgers for MVP. We saw the postseason Aaron Rodgers play with a destroyed leg. We saw all sorts of things that, how many other storylines on the field? Let's keep it on the field. So much good stuff, so much drama, really not knowing until the final couple of weeks. Jim Harbaugh, just watching the 49ers and Colin Kaepernick regress. I know that's tied to the off-field stuff, but it affected the on-field stuff. We saw Johnny Manziel come in, be terrible, and leave. We saw Josh Gordon come back from his suspension and then not play very well. And now he's suspended again. He's not going to be back next year. His NFL career might be over. We have witnessed a pretty insane season of football. And I'm glad that this was the year that I decided to start this podcast. Even though it all started off as a Madden Let's Play, we're here now with this. And I really am looking forward to an interesting offseason. We've got all of our new head coaches established. Dan Quinn officially was named the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Everyone saw that coming. Rex Ryan stayed in division, but he's in Buffalo now. He's not in the Jets. The Jets made arguably the best hire for a new head coach this year, getting Todd Bowles. You've got John Fox going to the Super Bowl, leading his team to a number 2 seed, losing in the first round. Now, magically, he's the head coach of the Chicago Bears. We saw Doug Marrone quit his team, and now he's an offensive line coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There has been so much to talk about this year, and yet at the same time, we're keeping this podcast at a half hour. So, it goes to show that when you're only focused on 2 teams, you can fill some time, but not all of it. So anyways, guys, I will be back. I'm not sure if I'm going to be back next week or the week after that. It all depends. I might wait until the week after and let some more storylines stew. But what I'm going to do next time is I'm going to go through, and it might be a 2-parter. I'm going to go through and look at each of the teams, probably for a minute or 2 each, and just briefly touch on what I think they need to do going into the offseason and sort of figure out where it's going to go from there. It's obvious you look at someone like the Bills and they need a quarterback and they need an offensive line, and that'll help the running game because they've got other weapons than that. But then you look at a team like the Jets and you kind of just don't know where you're going with them. They need all sorts of things. And then you look at the 49ers and you just wonder, a lot of it just 49ers, Dolphins, hinges on what the coaches get out of the players, because you're pretty sure they're pretty well established there. But we will look at all of that next time we are back. But for now, thank you guys so much for listening. Please leave a like if you're watching this on YouTube. Of course, you're watching this on YouTube. I still haven't figured out how to get it on iTunes yet. And be sure to answer the question of the day, which is going to be, what is your favorite storyline on or off the field from this NFL season? Was it something heartwarming, like Devin Still's, Leah Still fighting cancer and how she sort of rallied and had a really positive storyline to go with this NFL season? Or will you, harp on the negativity of something like the Ravens and the NFL's handling of Ray Rice, or Adrian Peterson, or Deflategate, or whatever your favorite storyline was from this past NFL season, let me know in the comments section below. And until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the game. I hope you guys are not like Eric, and you don't have to be bitter about enjoying greatness. I know I'm certainly not, and I have to look at them 2 times a year in my own division. So, thank you guys so much for listening. and I will see you guys next time.